So now it will start. Yesterday, I discussed how we can create income statement using Excel. So wherein I showed you how to, what are the theoretical concepts of an income statement, and finally how we can use income statement, how we can create an income statement based on our requirement and necessity. So adding to that, in order to create financial models, the second account which we need to build in our Excel sheet is the balance sheet. Okay, so I hope you might have had an idea now how to do it, and I didn't show it live. I mean, while me performing all the things on an Excel sheet and you are just listening it. So because we have already learned how to add these things, how to create an Excel worksheet, how to insert formulas, and how to do all those things, formatting and all other stuff. So, and moreover, you are not also using your laptops. So I am now in a very passive mode, in which I'll try to make you understand through the theoretical aspect of doing it. So now carrying forward from where we left, today we will learn how to build a balance sheet in an Excel document. So first thing first, what we should know first is how to create a balance sheet in Excel. This is our today's topic of discussion. And then first of all, we should know what is a balance sheet. So I am pretty sure that most of you have had this idea of balance sheet because this is what you have been creating for so many years. Most of you would have had this accounting as a subject in your 11th standard and then 12th, and then some of you might have gone to some BCom and BBA sort of subjects, so wherein you are required to prepare a balance sheet also. And during your MBA courses also, you might have created this balance sheet, but on a pen and paper approach. So now, since this subject is financial modeling and we have to create it digitally, I mean using the digital forms, so I will teach you how to create it using Excel, but things which are theoretical nature will be theoretical in itself. So we will try to understand what balance sheet is all about. So balance sheet basically are the financial statement which shows a company's assets, liabilities, and equity at a given time. So at the end of a year, it would help us to understand how many assets does company owns, how many liabilities does company needs to release, and what is the equity structure of the owners at the given point of time. Say at the end of the year, here is how to make it in Excel. So I'm quite confident that you all know what are assets and liabilities and equity. Whether you have a small business or a huge multinational corporation, आपका business चाहे छोटा हो या बड़ा हो, you need to understand how your company grows. It is essential for us to comprehend that we should know how our business can grow. So what we should do, we should therefore keep track of our company's financials by reviewing various financial statements. So out of these various financial statements, balance sheet is one of the financial statements which we should review in order to grow our businesses. The income statement, which we discussed yesterday, for example, show that how the organization makes and spend money. What does income statement show? It shows us how the income, how the money has been spent by the organization and how the company is making the money. Alternatively, the cash flow statement, which we will discuss tomorrow, most probably. So it actually let us know how much cash is available with us, and eventually enabling us to budget our expenses correctly. So cash flow statement we will learn tomorrow. Today we will learn balance sheet. Lastly, there is the balance sheet which we are discussing today, which is also one of the basic financial statement. Here is a quick guide to help you make your own in Microsoft Excel. So how to create it in Microsoft Excel? So before I teach you how to create it using Excel, here is a $1 million question, which is what is balance sheet and why do you need one? So instead of what is a balance sheet, that you are quite aware about it, my focus is why do we need balance sheet? This is the important question. So what is a balance sheet? A balance sheet will let you see the breakdown of your company's assets, liabilities, and equity. If you will just keep a journal and you keep entering the data or expenses or incomes or gains or profits or loss without any segregation of it, it won't look like a good sheet of it. So in order to prepare a balance sheet, what we have to do, we have to break down our expenses and incomes into three categories. First one is assets, and then liabilities and equity. In one glance, you will see how much of the company came from, retained earnings, owner's equity, and loan. Sorry. So just by seeing at a glance of it, we can easily understand company's retained earnings, owner's equity, and loans. With this information in hand, we can compute its return on investment. So if you do not have a balance sheet prepared with you, you cannot calculate return on investment and its various financial ratios. You can then compare these values against similar companies in the same industry. So if you have balance sheet with you, you can calculate various financial ratios like debt equity ratio and many. I have covered quite a few in the coming slides itself. And when you compute these return on investment and financial ratio, you can compare these values against similar companies in the same industry. For example, if you are preparing it for a bank, so for example, SBI. So if you have a balance sheet of SBI, you have prepared a balance sheet of SBI, and based on these different financial ratios, you can go ahead and compare it with other banks like ICICI Bank or Bank of Baroda or some banks, so that you can compare where you stand in competition with these banks. So what does this give us? This will give you a sense of how the business is performing versus its peers in the industry. So by creating the balance sheet, this will make us understand how our business is performing and how different companies are also doing with respect to our company. Okay, so any one of you is using laptops today or still mobile phone? Mobile or no, this is not the question. Do you have laptop access now? Laptop access now. Just type it. Do not open your mics. Just type it. Type it. Do you have laptop? This is laptop. Do you have top axis now. Just quickly.
Okay.
Ankur. Yes or no? Just quickly.
No, sir.
Okay, sure. Chalo. So, yeah. So first thing first, what we have to do, we have to select the time to cover. It is always essential for an accounting, for anything related to the accounting, has to be aligned with the date which we are dealing with. As with other financial statements, you have to pick a period to cover. Typically, this starts on January 1st and ends on December 31st. But it can also start from April 1st and end from the 31st of March. This depends on the nature of the business and the country you are doing it, and eventually your necessity or how you want it to make look like. But it has to cover a period of time which is essential part of it. However, you could also choose a different period for computation called the fiscal year. If you are doing it in between or like for part of a year, so it would termed as fiscal year, which typically begins on October 1st and ends on September 30. Do note that whatever period you use here must be consistent across your other statements. So time period to cover has to be consistent with respect to the other statements you are preparing. You cannot pick a different date if you when you are preparing income statement, and then go with a different date when you are doing it for balance sheet. So your time should be like consistent with the other statements you have prepared for your company. Then what we have to do next we have to prepare your accounts. We have to prepare the accounts to avoid the hassle of having to dig through your records when you are making your balance sheet. You should prepare it beforehand. Make sure to have each cash flow statement, bank statements, loan account statement, and credit card balances available to you. So all the required documents or the statements which a balance sheet would require when you are preparing it, you should have ready with you when you are trying to build a balance sheet. Before you begin, you need to know the value of the assets and inventory in hand. So if like there are certain assets available with the company, for example, there is a machine which we are using, which cost around rupees 10 crore and which we are using for like 10 years now. So it would have depreciated a bit. So we should actually know the value of the assets which we are having and inventory in hand, or other, for example, stocks we had in our the product we are dealing, and there are certain stocks available. So we should have the value of these stocks too, so that it can be incomputed in the balance sheet. Don't forget to include the amount you put down to start your business, as well as the investment made by the other people and entities. So this is also crucial. There is a certain amount which you invest while you start the business that also needs to be included, as well as if other people or your friends or colleagues or relatives had made any investment in the business, so their values or their amount needs to be entered in the balance sheet. And this is from where we have to start. First of all, we have to create the Excel file. So I wish you had your Excel file. I wish you had your laptops ready with you, so we could have done it simultaneously. But since most of you, yeah, all of you does not have access to the laptop, so I'll just help you understand theoretically, and I'll share the PPT, and with your time convenience, you can prepare at your own pace. So once you know the period, first of all, try to estimate the period which you will use to create the balance sheet, and you are covering and have the values you needed, and the money or the values of different like assets or liabilities, current assets, current liabilities, bank statement, stock, and blah blah. So these all values you should have with you when you started. It's time to create the Excel file. Now sit on the laptop and start your create the Excel file. Open a new file on Microsoft Excel. A new window has to be opened, and put in company name under parenthesis, and then write balance sheet at cell 1 for easy identification. Okay, like this, I'll just show you. So this is the company name, SE-IL-FIN Incorporation's balance sheet. You can name it like anything, Kotak Mahindra or Bajaj Financial Services balance sheet or something like this. So first line A1, this is the A1 part. You will have to write the name of the company and the balance sheet. Okay, leave some spaces for formatting. Then on the first column of the third row, write assets. Okay, ये हमने छोड़ दिया, and here we have written assets. Okay, so third row, first column. So this is first column और this is third row. यहाँ पे हमने लिख दिया assets. And this is the section where you will put in the values of for everything your company has. So what is an assets? Assets is anything which a company owns. तो यहाँ पर हम उन चीज की वैल्यूज लिखेंगे जो भी चीजें कंपनी के पास मौजूद हैं. Then on the third column of the same row, write the fiscal year you are covering. Here is the example. This is the year we are covering. So after leaving one empty cell, I have written the fiscal year we are dealing in. Okay, so the year is 2020. Okay. Now after assets, you have to create the corresponding liabilities and owner's equity section. So after finalizing the asset cells, two more things we need to create. These are liabilities and owner's equity section. Okay, see, this is like assets and total current assets and long-term assets. This is only assets part. This is liabilities and owner's equity part. See, liabilities and owner's equity and total equity. So these two sections we have to create separately. Liabilities actually refers to the amount of the company owes to third party. Liabilities वो चीजें हैं जो कंपनी को किसी दूसरे को पे करनी है. ओके, तो किस दूसरे को पे करेगी कंपनी के पास कुछ लोन्स हो सकता है जो वो बैंक्स को पे करेगी. कंपनी से कुछ सप्लायर्स हो सकते हैं जिसने उसको रॉ मटेरियल प्रोवाइड किया हो बट उसके अभी तक बिल जो है वो पे ना किए गए हो, तो वो सप्लायर्स को पे करेगी. और कंपनी का जो रेंट है वो हो सकता है रेंट कंपनी का जो लैंड है वो दिस इज क्वाइट पॉसिबल दैट दिस लैंड इज ऑन लीज और रेंट. So we have to pay a certain amount to the landlords and the government in the form of taxes and fine and penalties. So we'll have to pay all these things, and these all things would come under liabilities and owner equity. And what liabilities only. And what is owner's equity? Owner's equity on the other hand refers to the amount the owners raised for the business plus So this is actually the initial amount invested into the company, and then plus any earnings in returns it retains in its account, और कुछ सेव जो भी earnings retain की गई है उस accounts की वो ऐड होगी उसमें. These values in these two sections should equal to the amount noted under assets as the term balance sheet. So जब ये हमारी दोनों मतलब what is the what we called it, what is the basic structure of a balance sheet is that a balance sheet is a statement where assets are is equals to liabilities. So our focus is that we should understand, we should we are there to create a sheet where all the assets of the company should equals to the liabilities of the company. That is why this is called as the balance sheet, where our liabilities and assets are equal. However, before creating the liabilities and owner's equity section, you should first place the subcategories for assets. This way you will have less trouble with formatting. So as you know, this is the only assets part, but we have to keep some cells empty so that we can fill all these things. Like current assets are cash, accounts receivable, inventory, short-term investment. Total of current assets would be there. Long-term assets, real properties, office equipments, long-term investment. इसका summation यहाँ पे हो जाएगा. Other assets, prepaid expenses, deferred tax assets, employee advances. तो उसका total यहाँ हो जाएगा. फिर इसका जो total sum आएगा उसको हम बोलते हैं total assets. So we have to left certain cells blank before we write liabilities and owner's equity section. Okay, so that formatting would be easier for us. Now this is the time to create the categories inside the main category. So our first main category is assets. So what we have to do, we have to create subcategories of assets, because asset is not like one thing na, it is a combination of anything which a company owns. So we have to write it that way only. So each business and industry will have its own unique asset subcategorization. As simple as that, every business और इंडस्ट्री का एक अपना तरीका होता है जिसमें वो एसेट्स को सब कैटेगराइज कर सकती है. However, these are the typical sections most companies have, but these subcategories like current assets, fixed assets, or other assets are the typical sections which a company generally have. Bigger companies can have different some different subcategories also. Okay, these are then further broken down into small categories. फिर इनके भी these subcategories are also further broken into the small categories. Like I told you, current assets are cash, accounts receivable, inventory, short-term investment. Just give me a minute. I'll just come back in a minute. We were discussing assets. So different subcategorization of assets. Current assets are the assets which we can quickly liquidate, which can be converted into cash quickly as compared to some other things. These are typically cash. Cash itself is a most liquid form of money. Accounts receivable are the amount which we will receive on behalf of the suppliers, or sorry, buyers, and we can liquidate that also. Inventory is the stock in hand while calculating while preparing this balance sheet. And the short term investment like 6 months or 1 year term insurance or some insurance, something like this. So these are like these will come under the current assets. On the other hand, fixed or long term assets are harder to convert into currency. It would take some time to convert them into currency. These could be like real properties. Real properties are like what properties, like office or a warehouse or any property a company owns. Office equipments like table, chair, computers, machinery, blah blah. And the long term investment which would be redeemed after like 10 years or 5 years and something like this. So anything which we cannot convert into currency like real soon would be considered as the long-term asset or the fixed asset. And anything which can be converted quickly into the cash, we can or quickly liquidate, it would be termed as the current assets. And other assets are usually minor items that cannot be easily defined under current or long-term assets. So if anything is in between which cannot be properly defined into any of the categorization, fixed assets or current assets, though they will come under the other assets. These include prepaid expenses like subscriptions, deferred tax assets like refunds, and the employee advances. So these are not like they cannot be termed as the current assets or current liabilities. So we have named them as the other assets. But these are assets because prepaid expenses are like any expenses which is supposed to be happen in the future, but we are preparing we are paying the amount right now. Deferred tax assets are like while filing the returns, tax has been levied more, so we will get certain refunds from the tax which we had paid. And the employee advances, when employees take certain advances out of our money, so it is our current assets, but we cannot claim it whether it is a current assets or current liability. So we will go with the other assets only. While these categories apply to most businesses, your company might have a unique asset category. So you should review your operations before considering this as final. So you'll have to check with your company whether the company has the same categorization, or based on their categorization, you can create it. Okay. So this is how it look like. This is what we discussed. This is the assets part: current assets, cash, accounts receivable, inventory, short-term investment. Then long-term assets, real properties, office equipments, long-term investment ka summation, and then other assets, prepaid, deferred, employee advances or income summation, or eventually the total assets. Okay, I hope this total assets part is clear to you. Now moving forward, we have this liabilities and owner's equity. Similar to assets, liabilities and owner's equity has three major subcategorization. So liabilities are like current liabilities, और दूसरा वहां पे फिक्स था, यहाँ पे long term liabilities, and owner's equity. These are the three categorization. As the term suggests, current liabilities are obligations that the company must meet either in 1 year or in 1 ऑपरेटिंग साइकिल. सो करंट लायबिलिटीज वो ऑब्लिगेशंस हैं, वो रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज हैं कंपनी की, जिनको कंपनी को 1 साल के अंदर ही रीपे करना है, और if not 1 year then in 1 operating cycle, where 1 operating cycle refers to the time it takes for inventory to be converted into sales. For example, बहुत basic example मैं तुमको दे रहा हूँ कि if a company is acquiring raw materials from a supplier, so supplier we have and not paying the money and asking the company that they will repay in like after 2 months or 3 months or anything like that. But the supplier would argue that, so whenever I'll come for the next stock filtration, you will have to clear the you will have to clear the your outstanding bills. This is the typical practice done by every kirana store. तो यहाँ पे suppliers आते हैं, तो एक बार माल दे के गए and they will keep when they'll come again, like in 15 days or 20 days or 1 month or 6 months, they'll ask for last bill clearance first, then they will fill the stock. So this is simple. This is what we call as current liabilities. I hope this is clear to you. And then current liabilities could include accounts payable. This is what I gave the example about accounts payable to suppliers or lessors. शॉर्ट टर्म लोन्स फ्रॉम बैंक से कुछ 1 साल के लिए 3 साल के लिए लोन लिया है वो, एंड क्रेडिटर्स, इनकम टैक्सेस, पेबल सैलरीज व्हिच हैज टू बी पेड टू द एम्प्लॉयज हु आर वर्किंग फॉर द कंपनी, प्रीपेड गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज, एंड करंट पोर्शन ऑफ लॉन्ग टर्म डेट. फॉर एग्जांपल, जैसे अगर हमने लोन उठाया है 15 लाख का मार्केट से, तो दिस 15 लाख इज द लॉन्ग टर्म डेट. But we have to pay, for example, 1 lakh per month. So this 1 lakh per month is the current liability which we have to pay. Okay. Under long-term liabilities, you will find long-term debt. Okay. Deferred income tax, pension fund benefits if required by the law. तो ये pension fund का बंद है, but something which is like long term in nature has to which has to be paid by the company will come under the long-term liabilities. Lastly, owner's equity consists of owner's equity, which is the amount you put in the business. So agar maine, if I had started certain business by putting my 20 lakhs rupees, so this is my equity. Okay. If you are running a corporation, both this section and the subsections are called shareholders equity instead. So agar if I am the single owner or what we call this proprietor of a business, and I am the only person who had invested in the business, so it would call as owner's equity. But if I am running a corporation where there are multiple persons who have invested the money, so these both section and subsection were termed as the shareholders equity instead. So instead of owner's equity, what we called it the shareholders equity. We'll also find retained earnings under the equity section, which is the amount the business earned in the period less dividends paid out. तो हम retained earnings को भी equity section में रखेंगे. वो कौन सा पैसा है जो हमारे बिजनेस ने पैसा अर्न किया है, जिसमें से हमने डिविडेंड्स, जो हमारे शेयर होल्डर्स थे उनको डिविडेंड्स पे करने के बाद जो हमारे पास पैसा बचा है, उसको हम कहते हैं रिटेन्ड अर्निंग्स. विल हैव टू कीप दीज रिटेन्ड अर्निंग्स अंडर द शेयर होल्डर्स इक्विटी. ओके. सो दिस इज द एग्जांपल, दिस इज द थिंग व्हिच वी वर डिस्कसिंग like just before. So liabilities and owners equity. Current liabilities are accounts payable. Accounts payable तुमको पता है, सप्लायर्स को देने पड़ते हैं, या बैंक से अगर हम शॉर्ट टर्म लोन्स लिए हुए हैं तो देने पड़ेंगे. दीज आर द शॉर्ट टर्म लोन्स. इनकम टैक्सेस, पेबल सैलरीज टू द एम्प्लॉयर, प्रीपेड सर्विसेज, करंट लॉन्ग टर्म डेट. करंट लॉन्ग टर्म डेट देख के कंफ्यूज मत होना. दिस इज जो मैंने एग्जांपल दिया, 10 लाख का लोन है, बट वी हैव टू पे 1 लाख दिस ईयर ओनली, so we'll have to include it into it. We'll what we'll do, we'll sum all these, so this will be our current liabilities. Total liabilities, there are three subcategories of it: long-term debt, deferred income tax, and pension fund, if any. So we'll write it down here. We'll sum it up. It would sum into the total of long-term liabilities. So this would be our total liabilities. Total current liabilities and total long-term liabilities would be our total liabilities. Then owner's equity, and retained earnings. The what would be there, and then this is the total equity we will get. Now, if when this this sheet is prepared, what we have to do? We have to add the values. Okay. Under assets, add the values for each subcategories to know how much you have for each section. You then need to add each subtotal to get the total asset value of your company. So this is how it is done. Current assets, total assets is equal to summation of जितना भी पार्ट है, C4 से लेके 8 का पार्ट जो है वो हिडन है. So we will sum all these things. So we get total assets. Okay. Likewise, you should also add the values for each liability and owner's equity subsection to find out how much of your company's assets are from creditors and owners and the earnings. Take note that total value of the asset section and the liabilities and owner's equity section should match. ये बराबर होना चाहिए. Otherwise, there might have been an error in your accounting. मुझे पता है अगर बैलेंस शीट मैच नहीं कर रही है तो सारा खेल ही बैलेंस शीट का है. So इस तरह से लॉन्ग टर्म एसेट्स को हम सम कर लेंगे. जितनी भी हमारी लॉन्ग टर्म एसेट्स होगी वो, अदर एसेट्स को हम सम कर लेंगे. फिर टोटल एसेट्स के लिए हम इनको टोटल एसेट्स के लिए हम C12 को C21 यानी कि टोटल अदर एसेट्स को और टोटल लॉन्ग टर्म एसेट्स को और टोटल करंट एसेट्स को जोड़ लेंगे तो हमारा टोटल एसेट्स आ जाएगा. सेम गोज विद द लायबिलिटीज. तो टोटल करंट लायबिलिटीज, टोटल लॉन्ग टर्म लायबिलिटीज और टोटल लायबिलिटीज, इन दोनों का सम. ऐसे ही ओनर्स इक्विटी का सम और टोटल लायबिलिटीज एंड ओनर्स इक्विटी व्हेन वी विल सम both these cells. So this is the simple calculation where we'll have to just add the values. Okay, so this was the first part of it where I taught you how to create an Excel sheet based on different things. Now the important part of it is the formulas. So we have to find out various ratios. So this is the way how we can do it. So the first formula is debt ratio, which is total assets is equal to total liabilities divided by total assets. This is the percentage of the company's debt measured against its assets. So ये कंपनी का डेट है जिसको हम मेजर करेंगे उसके assets के खिलाफ. The formula for this is total assets divided by total liabilities, total liabilities divided by total assets. If you get a value greater than 100%, it means more than 1. That means its debt is greater than all its assets. अगर 1 से 100% से ज्यादा आंसर आ रहा है तो इसका मतलब है कि हमारा डेट ज्यादा है कंपनी के एसेट से. हाई रेशियोज आर आल्सो एट अ हायर रिस्क ऑफ डिफॉल्ट, बट दिस वैल्यू वेरीज फ्रॉम बिटवीन इंडस्ट्री. Like real estate and utilities, capital intensive business typically get higher average debt ratio values than service industry based companies. So अगर तुम्हारी कंपनी क्या बोलते हैं कैपिटल इंसेंटिव बिजनेस में है तो उसका जो है हायर होगा ये डेट रेशियो. और अगर सर्विसेज में आप हैं तो क्योंकि सर्विसेज में वी डू नॉट नीड टू पुट लॉट ऑफ मनी इनिशियली टू स्टार्ट आवर बिजनेस. So what we'll have to do, investment would be little low, so our ratio would be little lower as compared to the capital incentive business. The second, this is the formula you might all be aware about, is the current ratio is equals to current assets upon current liabilities. This value shows the capacity of a company to pay short-term loans with its liquid assets. तो अगर करंट रेशियो हमको पता चल जाता है कि जो अभी अगर हमारे कुछ शॉर्ट टर्म लोन है या शॉर्ट टर्म कमिटमेंट्स हैं वो कंपनी पे करने की पोजीशन में है या नहीं है. दिस इज कंप्यूटेड बाय द डिवाइडिंग करंट एसेट्स बाय करंट लायबिलिटीज. इफ द वैल्यू यू गेट हियर इज बिलो 0, there is a danger a company might default on its short term loans because of lack of liquidity. अगर जीरो से नीचे का आ गया तो मतलब इसका मतलब है कि कंपनीज के पास लायबिलिटीज ज्यादा है, करंट लायबिलिटीज, और करंट एसेट्स कम है, तो वो दे माइट बी फेल टू फुलफिल द शॉर्ट टर्म नीड्स ऑफ द बिजनेस. Okay. Now next is working capital. Working capital is equals to simple current liabilities minus current assets. So when you subtract a company's current liabilities from its current assets, you get working capital. तो current liabilities जो हमको पे करनी है उनको अगर हम माइनस कर देंगे जो assets हमारे पास मौजूद है उससे, तो क्या होगा कि हमको वर्किंग कैपिटल पर मिल जाएगी. वर्किंग कैपिटल जो मनी which we can use in our day-to-day operations while manufacturing a product or something like this. This amount shows how much cash or cash equivalent a company has after paying off its current obligations. कि अभी जो हमारे करंट खर्चे हैं उनको पूरा करने के बाद भी हमारे पास क्या अमाउंट बचेगा. This amount is termed as the working capital. If there is a significant positive difference between the two, अगर बहुत एक क्या कहते हैं उसको, एक नोटिसेबल डिफरेंस है दोनों में, पॉजिटिव डिफरेंस है, the company can easily grow and scale its business. तो वो समझ रही है कि हाँ जो जितनी मुझे obligations है पे करने की उससे ज्यादा मेरे पास assets हैं, it means I have a good working capital, so they can think of scaling its business. But if it is near zero or even negative, अगर ये zero है और negative है, then it might have trouble paying its loans and liabilities or worse could go bankrupt. अगर बहुत दिन तक यही चलता रहा वर्किंग कैपिटल में, मतलब करंट एसेट्स जो है हमारे पास वो कम है और करंट लायबिलिटीज से, तो वी वोंट बी एबल टू पे शॉर्ट टर्म कमिटमेंट्स एंड इवेंचुअली वी कैन गो bankrupt also. Now AE ratio, AE means asset to equity ratio. तो सिंपल इसी में से फॉर्मूला निकला है, टोटल इक्विटी डिवाइडेड बाय टोटल एसेट्स. तो इट इज अ रेशियो कैलकुलेटेड बाय डिवाइडिंग टोटल ओनर्स इक्विटी, ओनर का कितना पैसा लगा हुआ है उसको, डिवाइडेड बाय टोटल एसेट्स कंपनी के पास कितनी है, इनको हम डिवाइड करते हैं. दिस फॉर्मूला शोज हाउ मच द कंपनी इज फंडेड बाय द ओनर्स. तो ये फॉर्मूला बताएगा कि कितना परसेंट पैसा जो है वो कंपनी के जो लगाया हुआ ओनर ने लगाया हुआ है वर्सेस द अमाउंट फाइनेंस्ड थ्रू लोन्स, और कितना हमने लोन लिया हुआ है. A company with a high AE ratio may indicate that most of its financing come from the owners. अगर किसी का हाई AE रेशियो है तो वो बताएगा कि ज्यादातर पैसा जो लगा हुआ है वो ओनर ने लगाया है, मीनिंग इट डज नॉट हैव मैनी ऑब्लिगेशंस टू पे. इसका मतलब कि अब बहुत ज्यादा जो है उसको बाहर वालों को पैसा देने की जरूरत नहीं है, मतलब बहुत ऑब्लिगेशंस नहीं है दे नीड टू पे. On the contrary, a low AE ratio means that most of its assets came in loans and credits. और अगर किसी का लो आ रहा है AE रेशियो, तो इट मींस दैट कंपनी जो है वो उधार पे चल रही है, उसके पास लोन्स और क्रेडिट का अमाउंट ज्यादा है विद रिस्पेक्ट टू द ओनर्स इक्विटी. इफ द कंपनी हैज कंसिस्टेंट कैश फ्लो, a low AE ratio will have a low impact on its daily operations. अगर उसका कैश फ्लो कंसिस्टेंट है तो उसका बहुत इम्पैक्ट नहीं होगा डेली ऑपरेशन से. However, it leaves it vulnerable to price, interest and drastic changes, giving them less leeway to react. अगर ऑब्वियसली अगर उधार में ज्यादा है और उसको शॉर्ट टर्म लायबिलिटीज ज्यादा पे करनी है, तो इट इज नॉट अ वेरी गुड आइडिया फॉर अ ऑर्गेनाइजेशन. So these are the some of the important formulas which we called as the ratios, also financial ratios, which we have to keep in mind while we are creating it. And this is the thing for you. These are the places where to find balance sheet templates. So nowadays these balance sheet templates are available on internet itself. Although you may know how to create a balance sheet, उनको बता तो दिया है मैंने कैसे बनाना है. It's sometimes better to find a template to follow. So you can also go and find a template. You can do that in Excel by clicking on the file, go to the new tab, then the search bar, type balance sheet. After a quick search, Excel will give you at least 3 templates you can use. You can see it on your dash also. So if for example, this is the new sheet. I'll have to close all these. Chalo, not a problem. If you open it, you can. I have a lot of windows open. It would be a problem for me. So if you'll just start in your Excel, you can do that in Excel by clicking on the file. Go to the new tab. Then in the search bar, type balance sheet. तो वहाँ पे तुमको 2-3 already created template दिखा देगा. So you can use it. Alternatively, if you do not find them more fascinating, you can visit these websites, Vertex 42, FreshBooks, or Wise.com to download template from the website. This I can show you if I click this hyperlink. So these are the balance sheet template available with us. So see, this is the balance sheet. You just download it from here and you can fill these balance sheet. Okay. Or this is the FreshBook balance sheet. This is the template. Create a balance sheet. You can create it. और sample copy भी तुमको यहाँ से मिल जाएगा. So this is how it would look like. And then wise.com. This is the free balance sheet template. You can download it from here also. So these are the different sort of balance. So this is all from my side. I hope you got fair idea how we can create a balance sheet in an Excel. And more importantly, you should know the internal component of a balance sheet. Then you can go to the internet and find any number of balance sheets template available, and you can manipulate it and you can adjust it with your need, and you can prepare a balance sheet out of it. You got it? Any problems so far? Yes, Ankur, you want to speak something?
No, sir, we don't have any problem.
I can't hear you. A bit louder, please.
No, sir, we don't have any problem.
Okay, so yeah, thank you so much, and I hope you get something out of it. And more importantly, Excel or these financial models, these are type of subjects wherein you need to put a lot of efforts. You'll have to be more practically active. You should have laptops with you. You should try to build models, create balance sheet and other things. And with the passage of time, you would learn certain things out of it. Okay, thank you so much. Tomorrow we will cover cash flow statements. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.